Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Today, we begin with a story about an annoying customer at the end of the working day. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. And our first story. Man comes in after closing, gets mad when he's not served. So one night, me and a coworker are finishing up the cash out and cleaning. The lights are off and the close sign is up and the open flag is not out. It's about 20 past closing, and even now the outside lights are off. We had just finished counting the drawers and were putting the money into the safe when a man comes casually walking in. He'll be M for man. M: You know it's awfully dark around here. If I fell, I'd sue you. Coworker: Well, sir, we closed almost half an hour ago, so that's why the lights are off. M: I'm just saying I would. Now give me a pack of Camel Blues. Me and my coworker just look at each other confused. Me: M: I think what you mean is, absolutely, sir, the customer is always right. This service is effing terrible. Me, trying to contain my anger: Sir, we are closed. I'm sorry, but you'll have to go somewhere else. M: I said the customer is always right. Give me my cigarettes. At this point, while making eye contact, I just lean over and flick the register off and say in my calmest voice, Sorry, sir, the registers aren't on. We have no way to cash you out or take a card. You have a lovely evening. M: Gee effing damn it! I'm gonna complain to the owner. What's your name? Me: Name. I'll be sure to let him know you were the customer of the year as well. Please leave the premises before I'm forced to call the police. M: Angry yelling. Coworker waving. Bye! The whole thing was wild. He never reported me to my boss, and my boss said he watched the security footage and said if the guy comes in, he'll tell him off as well. I'm more than willing to help customers, but not when they start off being belligerent, let alone when they tell me to my face that the customer is always right. That's a surefire way to get on my nerves, because that's really only brought up when they want something ridiculous or are refused something for good reason. I hate it when customers pull the customer is always right BS. 9 times out of 10, they don't know what it means. They think it makes them the supreme overlord of retail land, and 9 times out of 10, they appear dumber because of it. And our second story. I recruited an unwitting army to annoy an a-hole. Back in the early 90s, my friend, I'll call him Lou, because that's his name, was selling his RX-7 via an ad in an old print auto trader. It came out every Thursday, so that first weekend was critical for sales. The very first guy that came to see it on Saturday said he wanted to buy after driving it. Of course, he had to finance, so they couldn't finish the sale during the weekend. Lou was worried about losing all the bites from the new ad, so he asked for a deposit of $500. The guy wrote a check. Lou told the rest of the callers that weekend that it was sold, and unfortunately didn't ask for their numbers in case it fell through. This story predates caller ID availability in my area by a couple years, so those leads were gone. As you surely expect by now, the guy flakes on Monday, and Lou deposits the check. Payment stopped, big surprise. Sitting around my apartment, we schemed revenge, but all we had to go on was the check. Lucky for karma, there was a phone number printed on it. Our first idea was to write a little program to dial his number repeatedly from my modem, but that'd be easily stopped and probably get us in direct trouble. Then Lou got a page from his work. This was back in the one-day pager days. You call the pager's dedicated phone number, it sounds a tone, then you punch digits for the number you want to be sent to the pager. The person with pager receives the number you entered and presumably calls it. Everyone with a pager made sure that people who needed to get a hold of them had the number for their pager. You'd see pager numbers in print and TV ads all the time for various services. Boom. Angelic choir sings. Heavenly light goes off. Lou's pager number and my pager number had the same prefix, middle 3 digits. What if we randomly dial numbers with that prefix and page them all to this guy's number? So we order a pizza, open some beers, and start looking through the yellow pages at locksmiths and tow truck companies to find more pager prefixes. We wind up with a dozen or so. After that, it's half an hour of coding in ye olde Borland C++. I put together a program that would cycle through our list of known prefixes and add a random final 4 digits to get a random pager. It calls the pager's number, pauses, then dials this a-hole's number and throws a 911 suffix on there for good measure, which is something people with pagers understood to indicate an emergency of some kind. The whole thing was just generating strings like ATDT6002XXXYYY, a-hole number, star 911 hashtag, where XXX is the pager prefix and YYY is random. Commas make pauses, since you need to connect to the paging service before you can enter a message. Make string, send a modem, wait for no carrier, hang up, repeat. We start eating the pizza and let it fly. I was very picky about my devices, so my modem was a US robotics courier. You could set an S register to control how long it would sound each tone when dialing. Uber nerds like myself would keep tinkering with that to get it as fast as possible while still being recognized by the phone service. I swear it could run through 4 pages per minute, so this guy would get 240 calls per hour. We just watched it run and laughed our butts off. We realized pretty early on that we didn't really know if it was working, so we wandered down to the 7-Eleven and called him from a payphone, just in case he could somehow trace it to the popo. We're on the case and watching. A man answered and I said, "Hello, I got a page at this number?" I heard an audible sigh and then he just hung up. Cold. We ended up running it for a few hours, then let it go quiet for a few days. Then we scheduled it to start dialing in the middle of the night every few days, plus we'd fire it up by hand randomly whenever we had a party. We checked again from the 7-Eleven after a week, and it went to an answering machine, which did the rapid tone at the end of the greeting to indicate the tape was full. We reasoned that the line was still ringing anyway, so we kept at it for another month or so. Eventually, we got the disconnected warning when we made one of our regular checkups. I'm sure he just changed the number. I like to think about that guy answering the phone after a few days of silence when we started it up. I can vividly imagine his response at the "Did someone page me at this number?" as he slams the phone down and then it rings again a few seconds later. Or of course, coming home from work and having an answering machine full of random people asking about being paged. And yeah, we annoyed several thousand people into calling this guy by the end, but each of those people was only put out for a single call. A cost, yes, but a necessary one for justice. And our last story. Corrupt manager wants me to reject crucial supplies. I do as instructed. About a couple of decades ago, I used to work at a concrete production plant for a reputable construction company. Our company, like several other construction companies, were awarded a portion of a larger project. A large portion of land was earmarked for setting up temporary office buildings and concrete plants for the different construction companies. The sites were separated by temporary barriers and had separate entrances. As many of you know, or not know, concrete is produced by mixing cement, water, sand, and stone grits sized 20 millimeters plus 10 millimeters, along with special admixtures in a specific ratio. Our recipe also contained a special ingredient, stone dust. Turns out only our company used stone dust in our concrete, and the neighbors did not. So a special truckload full of stone dust was specially shipped for us. This is important later. My job entailed orchestrating concrete delivery to our project sites apart from regular quality control tasks like checking incoming materials for quality, etc. Only after I had signed the delivery receipts, our store's personnel would unload the trucks at designated areas. A log of all trucks entering and leaving the concrete batching plant would be kept by security at gate, relevant later. Since my job entailed checking incoming material before accepting, the suppliers would usually try to offer some petty bribes, from cash to booze to flesh, if you know what I mean. I always decline such offers, as once accepted, you become their dog and lose all respect in their eyes. Moreover, bad material also impacted the quality of concrete produced, strength, consistency, and setting time, to name a few. Since concrete delivery was also part of my job, it was in my best interest to only accept good material. Otherwise, the client would chew me up during casting. One night, a supplier truck entered the premises with 20 millimeter stone chips. Upon testing, I found them to be undersized for 20 millimeters and oversized for 10 millimeters. I went ahead and rejected the load. The driver and supplier started pestering me, offering bribes and whatnot. When I didn't budge, they called my boss, who asked me what was going on. I explained that the quality of the material was unacceptable, and I've rejected this. When I mentioned it's too small for 20 millimeter, He ordered me to dump it in 10mm bin anyway. I knew what that meant. My boss was on the supplier's payroll. A couple of weeks passed by, and my boss asked me to reject a truckload of material from a very reliable supplier. He knew that the supplier was only delivering stone dust that day, and should we reject material, the entire load would be waste and a loss to the supplier. Once the stone chips or stone dust has left the quarry, they, for some reason, can't bring it back. Hence, my boss wanted to hit the supplier where it hurt the most, especially stone dust, as there was no other company that would take it. I called the supplier, who had become a friend by now, and told him that I was under orders to reject a truck. He panicked and told me that my boss was putting pressure on him for bribes. This particular supplier believed in providing quality material and always visited my lab to understand how I tested the material and what my requirements were. He would then go back to his quarry and adjust the equipment to deliver the best quality materials. Because he put so much effort in improving the quality of his product, he did not budge and bow down to my boss's demands. I asked the supplier friend to route a truckload of 20mm stone chips meant for some other company to my plant first. I would let the gate security log the truck's entry and then promptly reject the material. He was then supposed to send the stone dust, which I would accept and be done with my task. Everything happened as planned. I completed my remaining activities for the night and went home. When I came back to work in the evening, my boss was waiting for me at the door. As expected, he had checked the entry/exit log as well as material receipt history. He'd noticed that I'd accepted the stone dust and was chewing his anger, waiting for me to explain. He very casually asked me if I'd rejected a truckload. I acted dumb and answered in affirmation. I told him that the very first truck, a 20mm, was rejected. Now, usually 20mm is never rejected, especially from this supplier, so he asked me what reason did I give while rejecting the truckload. I said, flakiness index, a test we never do as a field test, but is mandated by the client to be done once a quarter. He knew that I was playing him, but he couldn't do anything. I'd done exactly what he'd asked me to do, reject a truckload. I had covered my bases with the security log as well as material receipt, so he just muttered something under his breath and never mentioned this to me again or asked me to do anything similar. 2 months later, he was transferred to a different site and I became the overall in charge. Same designation and pay, just more responsibilities. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.